Seth Kalnicki, endurance coach from the Ranch Athletics. If you haven't already, follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook for more information and videos like we're about to present today. I've got here Monica Moore, ultramarathon runner. Yeah, exactly. She's an ultramarathon runner. I was thinking of the book and then how that term just sounded weird. But yeah, she runs ultramarathons, and I'm what, 30, 31 now?
31.
All right, so well-experienced ultramarathoner. What we wanted to talk about today with you guys is how we actually train our endurance athletes within the gym, from the coach's perspective, my perspective, and then Monica's perspective as an experienced ultramarathoner, how she used to do traditional training, and now we've kind of changed that up. So to kind of dive into what we do and give you the basics and the overlay is with your training, what did you start with? It was always the volume first, and it was always...
Right. So I used to train the traditional long, slow distance way of doing a long run pretty much every weekend with a few shorter runs during the week, along with no additional much strength training or anything like that.
So, and that's kind of the typical scene. You've got athletes that she's training for 100 miles. You would go out and do a 50K on the weekend or a 50 miler and really ramp up that volume and that training, and that was the name of the game. It was always about the distance. And if you talk to any of the other people training, what's their first thing? What was the most important part of their training?
Definitely the long run, or the time on your feet philosophy.
That's a huge term you see a lot. They've got back-to-back runs, time on your feet. If you don't spend that time out there, you're never going to make the distance. And if you look at that model of the traditional endurance, you've got volume first, and then you work on some speed work, some stuff like that, if you did it at all.
Occasionally, if we threw it in at all, there'd be a little bit of speed work on the track, or maybe a tempo run once in a while.
How much time did you spend learning to run?
None.
How about,
we just went out and ran.
Right, because it's running, right? You just, who
right.
can't do it? Who has problems? Yet we're looking at 80% injury rate with something like 30 million runners. You've got, 24 million runners. That makes running a pretty ridiculously dangerous sport, even though it's supposed to be one of our natural skills. So if you look at that model of volume, speed and intensity maybe, and then for the most part, even my coaches back in high school, just run. What is wrong with you? Like, run. That was all there was to it. And each and every one of us looked like we're doing something completely different. So what we do in the gym is actually reverse all of that. So if somebody was going to come into the gym and look to learn to deadlift, I wouldn't start them off with 1,000 deadlifts and then tell them to go a little bit heavier or a little bit faster, ramp up that speed and intensity, and then I might teach them to do it right. That would be, anybody with any type of common sense would, you kind of get that perception of, well, it's kind of backwards. Why would I do it a lot and do it wrong and potentially hurt myself just to learn to do it right later? So that's what we do with running. And what was the first thing we did with you that I know you hated?
Stopped running.
Exactly. So you came to us, you were pretty beat up from all your running and stuff like that, and you weren't even really running because you had been...
Right, I'd really fallen into a phase of being kind of burnt out. No, I didn't feel good in general when I was running, or just even through normal parts of the day.
Right.
And I was running, maybe 1 8-mile run a week, and once in a while, maybe like a 15 on the weekend. That was it. Very
right,
low.
And you had what? What happened to your knee?
I did have a big issue with my right knee when I was in the middle of AR-50 some years back, and ended up having arthroscopic knee surgery because the cartilage was all messed up.
Right.
So
just standard running stuff, right?
Yeah, which is not too uncommon. Yeah.
Right. So, she's going back to what she said. She stopped running. That was the first thing we had to do. Is we had to fix her movement pattern. We spent 6 weeks, maybe a little bit more, on actually learning the skill of running. It is no different than any other mechanical skill that we have. We could jump, we could swim, we could run, we could lift heavy, we squat, we deadlift. We do all these things, and we have to become technically proficient. And if you look at the people that are the best at these skills, there's people that are learning to deadlift and squat for the rest of their lives. These powerlifters that are lifting over 1,000 pounds, and they practice that very basic movement. And running is just the same. It's a task or a skill that we have to learn, and we kind of have to relearn because of just tons of environmental factors. We could go into all that stuff later, but just know that I've never seen one. I've got quite a few runners now that we deal with. I've never seen one runner that was really, we have one that's pretty close, but still there's work that can be done with them. So that's what we did. We started that layer just to teach you to do it right. And our philosophy and thinking was, if we take that 6 weeks, it seems like a long time and it seemed like a slow process because she wasn't running. But if you heard her before, she already really wasn't running because she was burnt out, she was tired, she was injured, she was having problems. So that 6 weeks of downtime really wasn't downtime. It was, we did a lot of what? Strength work, working on a lot of other things.
Work and a lot of drills and working on form and technique.
Right. So we were actually able to increase her fitness in that time, her capacity, fix soft tissue issues, range of motion problems, and get her running correctly. There was no wasted time, and what it did was save us time down the road from dealing with what, like another knee injury. How long would that put you out? How many months, right?
Right. Well, yeah, that whole thing was at least 6 months.
Right.
Yeah.
6 months because of one problem. If we'd fixed it in the first place, you don't say that you. That's something you. It takes a lot of time to learn and develop. That sometimes you just have to back off a day or two, fix something, but you're going to save yourself months in the long run.
Right.
I mean, no pun intended there, but
yeah.
literally, like, you're going to save yourself a lot of time down the road because you took care of it correctly the first time. Next thing we did with her is, because now she's getting stronger, we're working on tissue quality, so she's moving better, she's feeling better, everything's coming around. I mean, jump in at any time to talk to him about this stuff and how it was for you. But next thing we did was, when she was ready to start running, we worked on short distances and we ramped up the intensity, and we slowly increased volume as she was ready and prepared to handle it. Because the way we see it is, most people out there running they shouldn't even be running at the point they are, and they're not ready to handle the volume of running that's required for some of those events. So
it's with really having the correct form and everything. Right. So, like, for example, I spent a lot of time on the track at first because of it being a smooth surface where I could easily, tell distance, and it was as little as doing one lap at a time for a while. Because in the very beginning, that was the longest, was a 400, that I could hold the correct form and hold that and do it really the right way.
Right. And
then
so
building from there.
Exactly. It's part of that secret, or the way that we're actually able to get these athletes better when they don't necessarily, when we get the outside perception that we're really not doing anything with them. The stronger you are, the bigger engine that we can put on you, the more endurance you're going to have. It's kind of like, if a simple way or kind of think about it that I got from Mark Ripito, he was I don't know exactly how he explained it, but he was saying something like along the lines, if your maximum output on the bike or something like that is 100 pounds of pressure, right? And it takes, let's say, 10 pounds of pressure to spin that tire, or spin that crank around. You're using 10% of your energy. Now, I could spend a ton of time working on endurance, trying to get you faster, and cadence work, speed work, things like this, and your aerobic capacity, and we'll make small improvements and we'll get a little bit better. But if I purely made you stronger, so now you could put 200 pounds of force in there, now you're using not 10%, but 5% of your energy. Now what? You have more endurance because you're using less energy. You have more you can go farther and faster just because you're expending less energy. So stronger, what you guys know, is never a weakness. Stronger doesn't make you slower, it doesn't make you anything but better. So strength has the capacity to improve all modalities, not all, most modalities of fitness, whereas your aerobic base won't make you stronger, it won't make you faster, it won't do anything except improve your aerobic capacity. So strength covers a bunch of ground there, and then the other thing with the short distances, we're able to ramp her up, but we're also able to train her anaerobically, which, same thing there, has a carryover to aerobic capacity. So now, because she's running 400-meter repeats, 100-meter sprints, hill runs, things like that, I can actually get her to go out and run slow it down, and she's able to handle a bunch of volume because, one, she's stronger to go farther, and 2, she has that aerobic capacity. So we were actually, even though I didn't feel like it, we were really ramping that up. And then it came to a point where we were just training along, and she came to me with what race was that? The Headlands 50,
That
right?
was Headlands, right.
So, like you said, 8 miles is your kind of your training, total
Yeah.
weekly training at this point. Or before she actually came to us. Now she was in the gym 4 days a week doing strength training. And then what we did was we had 3 running workouts per week, and those were really based around the skills at that point. She wasn't really running far, maybe 400 meters, a few hill repeats here and there. And 4 weeks before a 50-mile race, she says, you know, she comes to me and asks, can I do this? And she wanted to do it. And if this was somebody that wasn't experienced with ultra marathons, I would have them do a longer ramp up period. But because I knew she was mentally there, she'd experienced everything, we threw her in it to kind of test it out and see how it went. But tell them about Headlands 50. We trained for 4 weeks where we actually ramped up her running. But when I talk about ramping up her running, we never went more than 75 minutes. And the reason being there is after about 60 to 75 minutes, your aerobic capacity really doesn't increase. So you may run 4 or 5 hours, get those miles in, you know, those crappy slow miles, but that doesn't improve your aerobic capacity. So if you question that or actually think about that, why are we running that longer distance? It's not to improve aerobic capacity, so that's out. The only reason we need it is to go farther. So what's the limiting factor in going farther? Being stronger, right? So that's where the strength work came in, and that's all that time in the gym. I can have her 10 times stronger in 10 minutes squatting than I can comparatively having her running for 2, 3, 4 hours. Plus now what? You're recovering a hell of a lot faster.
Right.
Most people don't realize that within a 1 hour run, you've got about a 10-hour recovery window. So, and it goes up exponentially from there. So a 2-hour run is not 20 hours, it's much more. And the miles go up from there. So if she was training for a 50-miler, you what? Was a 50K kind of your standard?
Yeah, at least probably something around 25.
And so something like that is considered to take
weekend.
about 30 days to recover from, you know, which that's fully 100%, you know, recovery. You can train in that time, but she's kind of digging herself in this hole, and that's how you felt, right? You were burned out.
Right.
And that's where most of our ultra marathoners go, and that's why they go into the races feeling what?
Either burnout or probably ending up injured.
Right. We had
One
one
of the
girl
two.
that she was talking about her first 100 that we sent her to. I think every one of her friends was like, I'm just ready for this race to be over because they trained so damn much going into it. They didn't even want to race. Like,
They're not even as excited by the time you get to the starting line.
Yeah, so we kind of gone off topic here a little bit, but going back to that, she only ran 75 minutes at the most because we could get the strength elsewhere, and she wasn't ready to handle the volume yet. Like I said, volume's the third thing we layer on to improve the fitness. We have to worry about the other skills first.
Right.
And so 4 weeks of this, of 7 hours a week of training, plus one of those weeks was kind of a down week to taper off, right? So 3 weeks of training. How did it go?
So I was amazed. I had faith in it to begin with, but I was amazed at how I felt like the anaerobic running and the strength training both translated into a greater amount of endurance. So I had a really good race. I felt stronger and better than I used to. It was a really good day overall. It wasn't perfect, but it was really good.
Right, you finished in what, just over 10 hours, right?
I think it was 10:25 maybe.
And at the time, that was one of the harder 50s you ran, right?
Yeah, definitely up there.
So AR50 I think was your fastest, but if anybody knows the difference between Headland and AR50, they're just, it's a whole different race.
Yeah, definitely different courses. Headlands is a lot hillier.
Right.
Yeah.
So you walked in feeling better. I mean, well, you tell us about it. Like,
I
everything,
absolutely. I've had a ton of fun. I was really even exceeded my expectation of feeling stronger, feeling better. I could feel a huge difference in my body. It was a good day.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then from there, so we didn't make any changes after Headlands, right? The only issues you really ran into was some cramping.
I did have some cramping, which I think was just kind of transitioning different form, getting used to things, all that.
Right. So she really hadn't been training much, and then we threw her under a 50, so it's pretty heavy. But cramping isn't anyone could run into those problems. It's not uncommon. So we didn't really change anything when we went into Bishop 50, which is even a harder 50-mile race. This was pretty much ran all in sand. It was at a higher elevation, a lot more climbing. So we stuck to that same template. We were looking at 4 hours of strength training a week, 3 hours of running, and most of that was skill work still. Like we really practiced and hammered in the skill, which was done in the warm-up and cool down, but still a lot of focus and priority on that. And then same thing, right? Same thing.
Yeah, I would say Bishop was really good, like headlands, and then even a little bit better just because we'd have more time to train, more time for strength work, so I was even stronger at that point, more time for the different training with running.
Right. And then, I mean, this was a girl that came in and struggled to pick up 75 pounds, which...
Good point. Yeah, we really should have pointed out how weak I was at the beginning.
Well, not even that, but when you operate in such a small range of motion, you just get stiff, and your body, you feel like you're fit until you go and try and do anything else, right? Like, you felt pretty...
Yeah, like I used to think before that I, you know, running-wise and overall-wise was pretty fit and all that, and I really wasn't so much. But you think, oh, I can run 50 miles, I must be fit. But there's more to that than I realized at the time.
That's just, that, like we were talking about earlier, the aerobic capacity thing only really improves that, where strength improves my ability to pretty much do any other activities, right? So when we're dealing with this, she went from 75 pounds, I mean, she just pulled, this is a year later after when she started training, so you guys understand the time frame, but she just pulled 235 or 240 for a deadlift the other day, and she's gotten a hell of a lot stronger. And how did, let's not even talk about the endurance stuff, but like water skiing, and I remember you talking about that stuff, like things like that.
That's true. That's a really great example. Like this past summer, water skiing, which is something I usually do every summer. After a little more than a year of consistently being in the gym, I could not believe the difference of how much stronger I felt, you know, skiing, which is totally different than running.
Right.
So huge difference than before.
So.
Yeah.
She went into Bishop training the same way. She was a lot much stronger. She ran better. She ran. The time was slower, but we're talking about a much harder course. If anyone knows the differences. But her placement, top 10 women? I can't remember which, fourth, right?
I think it was maybe fourth one.
Fourth woman overall, where she's never been in that part of the field in training, you know, when completing these events before, and she's had a ton of experience. So we went from a girl that was, you know, close at 27 ultramarathons at that time, 28 of them, tons of miles, have been doing this since college. She was running in high school, She was there, she was fit, and now she's placing much higher in the field, feeling better by doing what would so-called, people seem like we're doing less, but I mean,
it's just different, and it's really not less, it's really in a way more, but it's different.
Right, so it's just the focus has changed. She's still, the workload's probably harder now.
Definitely.
But the duration's not there. It's just the intensity is at a whole new level, right?
Right. It's a shorter time frame, but much more intense.
So she went in, and then really the only issue you had during Bishop was your knee started to act up a little bit on you, right?
Right. I had a good amount of achiness in both knees, kind of off and on.
So, I mean, excuse me there. So all we did from this point on is, now that she's been trained that way, we kind of took a look at her knee, what was going on there. We spent a little more time on that, and so all we really did was her time of training didn't change. We just added into her warm up, or changed her warm up a little bit to correct those issues we'd figured out during the 50. And then because she was now running really efficiently, her workouts were going so well, she was on top of her nutrition and other aspects of her life, that she was ready to actually start adding on volume. So this is when, instead of 3 days a week, we're adding 5 runs a week. So there's 3 workouts, and then what? I only had you running 20 minutes a day, right? For those other 2 days.
An additional 20, maybe 30 minutes tops. So still a short what would be considered a short time
Right,
frame.
like you can't run a marathon off 20 minutes of training.
Right.
Right.
There was more volume added, but still short.
So that did ramp up to about 60, 75 minutes additional, but those were easy runs, just like I said, just to add fitness because she was ready. And anytime, our rule of thumb was anytime you have 2 bad workouts in a row, we just take a down week, we cut the workout out, we skip it. It's okay. Like, you guys are hard-working athletes and doing a lot. Don't be afraid of a day off. It's not going to kill you. It's not going anywhere, right?
And I think that's a really important point because that's something I think we're all afraid to do. And that was a really strict rule of thumb, and I'm glad that, you know, you made us keep to it. If there was ever that second bad workout in a row, there was a definite modification made.
Yeah, so we took some downtime, and previously, I know I still have to deal with this, where we have athletes that it's frustrating, they're not feeling good, they're beat up, they're not doing well, and they refuse to take a day off. And some of these people are so stubborn, they refuse to modify one movement because they think that's the key to their success. Like, we could change this, we could do something, we could still get you there. So if you could kind of take that away, that's a good piece of information that, like, kind of let the system work, let it all happen, take the time and do it right. Otherwise, we're going to be fighting problems for the rest of the time. So with all that being said, now we're looking at Pine to Palm, which today's Thursday. She just completed this race on Sunday. She just ran 100 miles. And tell us how that went.
So that was amazing. I thought it was such a huge difference.
Fifth 100, so.
Right, and 500. So great. I feel like I have a good perspective on it because I have 4 previous experiences to compare to.
Right.
And I noticed, we talked about Headlands and Bishop and how much all that strength training and anaerobic running really gave me a greater endurance base. Well, it's one thing to say that for a 50, but then to actually go and do the 100. And I felt even better than I did in the 50s. And I had the best endurance I've had in any of my 100s or any race, period, but even compared to the other 100s. How was
your knee doing the race?
And on top of that, my knees were absolutely no problem. I mean, basically nothing at all.
Right. This was a girl that's had knee issues, knee surgery, and for her to go through a whole 100-mile race with no knee pain is pretty unheard of. I mean, if you talk to any other ultra runner, most of these people have knee pain that never had problems. Like, they've got issues,
because of the distance and or the course. Like Pine to Palm, as most people know, is very mountainous.
Right.
So that alone, it's 20 or 21,000 feet of climbing or whatever, and downhills,
right,
which can be really brutal too, and some really steep sections, and that can beat up anybody. And not only were my knees fine, all of my joints were fine. My back was fine, my hips were fine, my ankles were fine. Of course, as the race went on, I got, fatigued, and there's muscle soreness and
right,
pain.
You're running 100 miles.
Because it's 100 miles. That's unavoidable. But even the level of that was better than it used to be. And even at, mile 90 and 95, when I'm feeling exhausted and you're pretty darn beat up, I could still tell, underneath that, I'm making it. Like, I'm surviving this.
Right, and if you look at her crew and stuff, they kind of updated us how she was doing out of the event. You actually heard there was a lot of people where she was coming into these aid stations, and they would joke with her, like, have you even been running? Like, it's aid station mile 60 something, and they're like, would you just start this race? Things like that. Like, you'll notice that when you have these positions that are strengthened and enhanced and better, and you move well, you just look good, you feel good.
You don't come into the aid stations looking as beat up and shitty.
Yeah, exactly. So she was able to, completed the race, did really well, completed the race really well. How was it compared to your other 100s? Were you happy with the results? Or?
I was extremely happy, I would say, and I'm proud of and happy with my previous 100s too. But I would say that overall, big picture, this was my best performance overall. And that's even comparing it to, I did run sub 24 at Rio one of the times, which was a huge, huge accomplishment to me. But for this hard of a course, the difficulty of it and the climbing and everything else to run the time that I ran for me, which, you know, I ended up running 29:38. To break 30 was like the phenomenal goal for me.
Yeah, this course was a 36 hour, 37?
34 hour cutoff.
34, so 34 hour cutoff.
Yeah.
So if you've got time frames that are 34 hours or more, you're looking at a very hard 100.
Yeah, definitely.
And she did really well. And so she called me after the race to let me know how it went, and what was the first thing we had you do as soon as you got to the hotel?
Oh, put the Mark Pro on.
Yeah, so we started recovery right away. Like I had her squatting in the hotel.
Yeah.
We had her moving right. We got electrical stimulation, which basically contracts the muscle, creates a flexion in the joints to create a pump, and it's able to flush the system. For those who don't know, so it's a way to got her on compression, and compression socks, things like that, increasing blood flow. We want that recovery. We got to flush that stuff out of there. We've got to get her moving again.
Right,
so,
and moving around.
So, let's back up a little bit. Let's say it's Rio, right? You've just finished Rio. What do you do for the next 2 weeks, 3 weeks?
I used to just kind of lay around, you know, and I wouldn't do anything. I would take the time off of running, but I didn't do anything else but run then. Yeah. So I wasn't really moving around like I should be either. It was just a lot of sitting and laying around.
So how long did you look like a 90-year-old woman?
Yeah, probably a good, week or two, probably.
Yeah, you'll see the standard. I finished my ultramarathon. I deserve myself a beer. I'm going to drink a bunch of beer. I'm going to sit around, and I'm not going to do anything for the next 2 weeks. And your body looks like it, right? I mean, you treat it like that, it's going to react the same way. So within hours after the race, as soon as she got to the hotel, we got her moving again. I mean, I know that was one of the last things she really wanted to do. And then she had to drive back from the event the next day, which, ideally we wouldn't have you sit in a car. But same things, we worked on the recovery. We were doing compression. We were on the Mark Pro. We were working things as we could.
Right.
And then what did you do that night?
I came into the gym.
She was in the gym. And bad decision, good decision?
Yeah, best decision ever. I couldn't believe how good I felt when I walked into the gym to begin with, being that it wasn't even, barely 24 hours, 30 hours since I had finished. And then we did just some really light mobility work. And
she squatted.
And some squatting, just body weight.
Yeah.
But, probably like 30 or 40 squats. And by the time I left the gym, I felt even better than when I walked in, which was already amazing.
What did you do Tuesday?
Yeah, went back to the gym again.
Tuesday I went to the gym. Wednesday, what did we do?
Even better.
It was an off day from the gym, but you still were moving. You were in the spa.
Yeah.
You were, hydrating, you were eating, you're sleeping.
Yeah, walking the dog, making sure I get enough sleep, all that.
And now it's Thursday, and if you look at her, we probably put her through like a 70% of a workout. Like we took the full workout, we dropped, she wasn't deadlifting, we were doing deadlifts at 80% today. We nixed that, we did deadlift, but it was probably 30-40%.
Right.
And then we finished a full workout.
And I feel normal. That's the thing. I never used to feel, quote unquote normal at this point.
Yeah. So if we kind of reiterate everything we talked about, we took that model, volume first, then speed and intensity, and then maybe skills, and we flipped that upside down. We spent all our time on actually learning to do it correctly. Then we ramped that up, increased that ability, make them go faster, make them go harder, and if they're not breaking down and they're still running really well, that's when we finally add the volume, and that's when we layer on that last level of fitness. So that's kind of our thinking, that's our mindset, that's how we approach this, just like anything else we do when we're training. To us it seems common sense, but that's just not how it's been done, and it's just one of those things that you kind of do what you're told. My coaches told me, just run, and we had, I ran the mile or 2 mile, and we had to run 7, 8, 9, 10 miles every day, all the time, and it was just what we did. We didn't know any better. So we did that. We got her stronger. That translated to farther, faster. We increased her tissue quality. Same thing. Farther, faster, better, no pain. took care of those issues. We can jump in here at any time. Spent our time focusing on other aspects that, you know, foam rolling, the tissue quality, just taking care of themselves, taking care of, you know, you're a high performing, you know, machine almost in a way. You've got to treat it that way. So we kind of took that mind shift and changed that all and got that in perspective. This girl was drinking, when I met her, was drinking Pepsis every day and I don't know, all kinds of crap.
Eating crap.
Yeah. But, you know, we started treating that better and fueling it better, and we're looking at a whole new you. And some of the other things, like, you're, what, 40, 41? 40. And for the first, like, you feel and look.
That's what I was just going to add in, is one of the most important things to me, besides just running and performance, is that I feel so much better. And I feel way younger and healthier and have more energy and sleep better.
This girl's doing pull-ups, like all kinds of stuff. I mean, you'd never done a pull-up in your life.
Right, no.
And
never,
at the age of 40, she's
life.
knocking out close to, you know, a dozen pull-ups at a time. And, you know, she's looking at a whole new life. It's given her, the other thing is, we were talking about this last night, she has time with her family now. Instead of 7 hours,
huge factor.
She's spending 7 hours. I mean, now that she's ramped up, we're looking at 10, maybe 11 hours of training in a week when she wants to. But she doesn't have to complete that. She's just, as she wants to increase and do better, we do it and add volume. We're not against adding volume. It's just at the appropriate time. But even then, she's training 7 to 10 hours a week, when I knew people that would go spend that in one single day training
of
for
the weekend. Just for the long run.
Talk about a horrible sex life or anything. Like, just talk about, like, your family, like, everything, right? Like, how fun is that? Like, it sucks. So it's, you know, you've got what? That's the other benefits of this. You've got,
there's a
you have a
huge
life.
time benefit. Yeah.
So she's recovering better. We're looking at shorter durations. The tapering, how was, what? We didn't do a 3-week taper. We did like a 3-day.
Exactly.
Like,
that was all that was needed, because I recover so well all the time on a consistent basis.
If I'm not out there on these long runs and needing huge, vast amounts of time to recover, I could pretty much turn her around and get her ready to go at any time of the year. We also buy into the philosophy that if you're training properly and you're training smart, you're training for, you know, life, and you're training for these events to go out there, that you really should be able to turn around and do this at any time. If she wanted to run 100 miles in a month from now, so be it. If she wants to compete in something else, you know, we'd spend time and focus on that. And, you know, the more time we have with it, the better we can make her. But any time out of the year she decides she wants to run 50K, 50 mile, 100 miler, let's do it. We don't need this huge, long, extravagant thing, right?
Right. There's, I think, a lot more flexibility with the way I train now than there used to be. Because we're in this constant state of readiness, and
Exactly. She's because of the way we're looking at things, and we're spending more, we're focusing a lot on that recovery, which I think is way too neglected.
Right.
And people are just afraid that their fitness is going to go away. And really, I think a lot of that is just, like, she was deadlifting 75 pounds. You're physically weak. You're not capable of doing much. So yeah, if you drop a few days of running, you're going to feel even more crappy. Like, you know, but if you're not that person and you've got more physical, her general physical preparedness is ramped way up, and she's got a stronger, better base. Like, have you ever felt like after a week, she's been sick like anybody else? Like, that didn't go away, did it?
No, not at all. Yeah. It's just still right there.
Right. The stuff doesn't go away if you're smart about how you're training and where you're going with this. So, you know, there's just a lot. I know we talked about a lot, threw a lot at you guys, but, you know, we just wanted to kind of start talking about this and get this idea out there, and for you guys to start thinking about there's other ways to do things. And, you know, if you're happy with your training, if you could honestly say, you know, I mean, we're all going to come across injuries sometimes, like catastrophic things happen, problems happen, but if you're consistently the norm is that you're not injured, you're healthy, you're sleeping well, you're eating, you feel well, you're doing great there. You're happy with your performance, you're happy with your life, you're happy with your training. Like, stick with it. But if you can't answer yes to those things, like, maybe start to consider things and look at things, and don't be afraid to try things that are out there and look at other options. It's, obviously,
Give it a try.
obviously running millions of miles will get you to the point that you could do things. That's what she's always done.
Right.
But there came to a point where she was injured and unhappy with things, so we were able to kind of give that to her in a different perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So, and really, at this point, she's able to handle the volume. If she wants to get fast, we can make her fast. Like, that's not a problem. So.
And it's a ton of fun too.
Yeah.
I never thought I would enjoy, lifting weights and doing all that strength training.
Yeah, I mean, kind of on a side note, every female we've had come into the gym that's stuck around, like, you feel just empowered, right?
We do, and every one of us absolutely loves it, and pretty much says the same thing, that we never thought we would enjoy it so much, and we love being there.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, you went out this summer with all your girlfriends from college, and you were just getting compliments and everything else, right?
Yeah.
You just look different, feel different, so there's other benefits there. You can't look that good running, so.
Just running, that is so true.
Right. So, nothing against running, guys. It's a great thing. It's part of our human nature. It's part of who we are and our movement. And it's an integral part of our lives, and should be a skill or a piece of our lives that we can function and do on a healthy level and safely and be injury free. So, anything else you want to wrap up with or talk about? Feel they should know.
Just really, sometimes too, it involves a little bit of a leap of faith, like anything. If you think you might be interested in trying it and doing something different, what's the harm in trying? If you end up not liking it, you can always go back to the old way. But sometimes you kind of just have to say, I'm gonna commit to this for a while and give it a try. You never know what's gonna happen.
Yeah, I mean, I could, without fully understanding, or that's a huge leap of faith. Like, let's, to talk about that. We had a girl that I started training many years back that this poor girl was in orthotics, motion control shoes. This is a heavily over cushioned shoe that's protective and doesn't allow the foot to, it's like a freaking brace. Yeah. And she hadn't run since college. She's 41 now, something like that. Hadn't run in over 20 years because she had so many injuries, so many problems, and she just wanted to run a 5K with her friends. And we took this girl in a short amount of time. This was her choice, but she was running barefoot and in sandals, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like, if you're healthy and you're a good, efficient runner, you could do those things. We took her from a 5K to her first 100-miler, and this girl did it completely on this training method. She never once ran over 75 minutes, and her friends, I think, they all gave her a hard time. She was gonna fail. Like, they were, I don't know, but even I got it from people that, that were causing a problem. We're
very skeptical, yeah.
Right, like, but that takes a huge leap of faith to trust and understand that you can take 75 minutes and turn that into 30 hours of performance and be able to handle a lot more and do a lot more. So, there's a good point about the leap of faith in that. But you're working hard, so.
Yes, that too.
That's the thing I don't think people understand, is how hard you girls, actually work. So, feel free to always get a hold of us, email us, subscribe to our newsletter online, follow us on Instagram, Twitter, all that stuff, Facebook. We'll get you more information. Send us questions. We love answering this stuff. We love talking about this stuff. We do this for, this is something we're passionate about. We have a lot of fun, and we want to help other people. We want people with the families that want to get out and do these things, or they were the college runner that was hurt and just gave up on running. Like, we can fix these things. There's no reason you can't be out there doing these things. So, hit us up, let us know, and we'll help you out. Have a good one.